Welcome, everybody, to the Real Deal podcast. I'm Kevin from Palmetto Cats.
And I'm Mike with Murillo Family Fishing.
And y'all, we're just here starting this new endeavor. We've been doing YouTube for a little while, and if you're watching this on YouTube Live, then you are a Palmetto Cat Boom Squad member, and this is a little bit extra for you, Mike. I told my Boom Squad, I was like, well, you're paying monthly to help the channel and help me, get new gear and fishing equipment and just gas for the boat. I just feel like we need to do a little more for them. And thankfully you agreed.
Yes, it was a simple choice. I mean, do you want to have fun? Do you want to talk about fishing with your friend for an hour or however long it goes?
Yeah, however long
once a week? The answer is yes, absolutely.
But yeah, so if you're in the chat box, we just welcome you. And if you ever have any questions, you can ask us any questions and we'll answer them. And if you're listening live if you're listening on the podcast, then we're not live anymore. But leave us some comments on the podcast. Give us a rating, what you think of it. Topics for future shows. You can always email me, palmettocats@gmail.com, and say, hey, I'd like to know a little bit about such and such. But basically, I grew up fishing my whole life, and I know Mike did, and we're going to talk about that a little tonight. We're also going to talk about what the podcast is for. What can you expect? And what you can expect to get out of it. So so Michael and I we met on YouTube, and he was in my chat one night, and we just started talking back and forth, and we kind of developed into it did develop into a friendship.
Oh, absolutely.
And so Mike, how long have you been watching YouTube?
I would say that I had been watching YouTube maybe just shortly after Muddy River catfishing existed. I might have been a few months later. Stayed pretty quiet for quite a while, but my habit or my MO or whatever you say is that usually I'm quiet, but then as soon as I start yapping, I just can't stop. So I would
pretty much if it has a battery or a fish hook in it, you like to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Or food, right?
Yeah, food. That's another thing. We'll get to that. Tonight is kind of designed to kind of talk about our personalities, because maybe people on YouTube might know who we are. I've had some interaction, definitely me, because we're on my channel. But people on the podcast, we have a lot of truck drivers, a lot of people that just listen at work, or people that really don't have many outlets to talk to people. They listen, and I know they do because they comment on it and they tell me how much they enjoy it. So you've been watching YouTube for at least 8 years, which totally trumps me. I didn't even know really YouTube existed. Well, let me rephrase. I thought that YouTube existed for cat videos and other funny videos that people would share on Facebook, or they would send me a random link. I never knew that there was catfish on YouTube. Can you believe that?
Well, I didn't think about it for quite a while either. I would go look at YouTube to see if anybody had recorded something that I didn't have the channel for it on my television, like a Formula One race or an old IndyCar race or something like that. And then, just funny videos. Like you said, it's just like, wow, look at this. This person's going to kill themselves doing goofy stuff like that. And next thing you know, it's like, I didn't realize that once I got a Gmail email account, that meant that I was on YouTube, or that
you were a part of it.
Yeah, I didn't realize that.
Right.
And then I'm like, wait a minute. I was like, it says I can leave a comment, and there's a picture of me right there. I'm like, how is that? And then I had to ask my brother, and my brother's like, dude, you are so lost. He's like, what do you mean you don't know this stuff? And I admitted to it. And then he's like, well, yeah, you can do this. And these people do that. And this person has this many hundreds of thousands of followers. I'm like, what's a follower? And he's
Yeah.
like, well, they call it a subscriber. And then, so he explained the whole thing to me. And then next thing you know, it's, you watch these videos and you try to enjoy what you want to enjoy. And then we decided that we'd have kids, and then I was stuck in a rocking chair, rocking kids to sleep. And then YouTube became a real big part of my
Yeah.
life.
Then it
And
really became an addiction.
that's when I started finding you all.
Right.
I'm like, okay. And Lauren grew up a little bit, and then we had Leia. And as Lauren grew up, all she knew was that she had a grandpa named Jimmy Houston, and she had an Uncle Jeremy Wade on TV, and then started playing all the YouTube videos on my phone right there, and she'd be watching before I'd get her to sleep, and here we are.
Yeah. So that's your YouTube journey, which is a little longer than mine. And my fishing YouTube journey started about 2 years ago. And I remember it distinctly. It was around Christmas time, or right Thanksgiving, I guess, in 2019. And I was laying on the couch. My wife and I were just, having a lazy Thanksgiving weekend. Everybody's off, everybody's full, feeling fat and greasy. And, we're sitting there and, this fishing video pops up. And I'm like, what is this? Catfish. I've caught a catfish before. And it pops up, and this guy who kind of looked like my dad, he had a mustache and, a beer belly, what I call a beer belly. He kind of talked like my dad a little bit. And he had this rod hanging out of this rod holder on the side of the boat, a big rod. And then the tip of the rod just slammed down in the water like 2 to 4. No, it was about five guides into the water. And then he's sitting there just going, look at that. Look at that. Look at that. There's a fish on that. And I'm sitting there like, I go from the laying down position, the horizontal position, to sitting up. And I'm like, get it. It's a monster. It's a monster. And little did I know. And so he reeled it in, and, it was like a 60-pound catfish. Like, I was like, wow, that's awesome. I've never seen fish that big. And, my dad and I had caught them on a trot line before, but I've never seen a fish that big caught, on a rod and reel, not out freshwater. Of course, saltwater, there's giant fish everywhere, sharks and whatever. But and that was Steve Douglas. And so Steve Douglas was the first catfishing video, which is not a surprise, right? I mean, I'm sure you after Chris Flores, Muddy River Catfishing, you soon probably went to Steve Douglas as well, didn't you?
After that, it was Luke Nichols.
No, yeah, Catfishing Carp.
And I did stumble upon what has to be the exact same video that you're talking about right now.
Yeah.
And I'm sitting there and I'm like, well, he's going to lose the rod.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm arguing with myself. I'm like, pick it up, man. The rod holder's not going to hold it. It's not going to do it. And then later on, all the pieces are coming together. I'm just like, wow, I'm really glad that nobody could hear me, because that guy makes the rod holder. So I'm like, wow, right. Am I just out of it here? But I had never, ever seen anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
Just like you said, that was my exact reaction. I'm like, what on earth is going on? And even now, having been on a boat catfishing with rods in those exact same positions, it just still feels so crazy to me. I'm like, that's not going to work. And it does. And I was praying the last time we were out on the boat like that. I'm like, come on. I want this thing to be like 6 eyes into the water. And our guide was like, oh, it'll happen. And it didn't.
Well, so anyway, so after watching that video, of course, the first thing I said to myself was, and you're brought up. Well, anyway, in the Lakin family, we're brought up and we're bad to the bone. You know, we catch all these panfish. You know, we catch big catfish, and I'm like, man, I can do that. I can. I've never seen that before, but I'm pretty sure that if I tried, right? If I tried, I could do that. And so, you know, I went out there and I started fishing. I wasn't recording it, but I started fishing, and I caught some. I caught probably a 50-pounder the first couple weeks. I went out there and started dragging for catfish. I never heard of that before. And so then, you know, I was like, this ain't so hard. So I bought a GoPro. And, you know, it was December by this time. And so it was Christmas break. And I went out on the little bass boat that I had, and it was so cold and dreary. The water was like dark brown, almost black. It was so muddy. And I didn't catch a single thing. And that was my first recorded video, was a skunk video. But it was and I've never done that since. It was a good video because I always look back on it, and you know, I look back and say, man, I was so cocky and so stupid at the same time. Now I did witness a car wreck, which is, you know, the main point of the video is a kid lost power steering and the car went off the road with the boat in tow and totaled both of them. So not that was cool, but that was kind of like a thing, you know, that was the video. So that's kind of like our YouTube journeys. And ever since then, you know, I've, you know, been growing ever since, getting better and crafting and getting better at speaking. So let's talk about our journeys, you know, through fishing. So people need to get to know us for the podcast. And like I said, people on YouTube have seen us before, you know kind of what we're about. But so Mike, you're from Iowa and you grew up not really fishing for catfish. Tell us a little about how you started and what you targeted.
Yes, I born and raised in West Des Moines, Iowa. Des Moines is the capital city, pretty much 3 hours north of Kansas City. Lots of people have heard of Kansas City. Maybe not everybody's heard of Des Moines, Iowa. Central Iowa is not known for monsters like some of these other tremendous locations that you and our other YouTube friends fish, these amazing fisheries. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that we don't have fish and fishing available to us all over the place. I've often told people that I'm about as suburban as anybody that you will ever encounter. Right. I will never sleep in a tent, and I've never wanted to, you know, things of that nature. But we started fishing for carp. Now, we had to seemingly prove ourselves or perhaps initiate ourselves to fishing more easily than the patience that carp can demand. So Grandpa and Dad and Tone would sorry, dog's eating something. Grandpa, Dad, and Tone would get all of us young kids started on bullhead. And these are yellow and black bullhead.
Fairly small, right?
Fairly small. The largest ones that we've ever encountered are probably, I don't know, in the 3-pound range.
Gotcha.
And very, very rare, especially anymore. So you're talking Zebco 33, gotcha. Maybe 10-pound line.
That was fun though.
A 3/8 ounce egg sinker.
3/8 ounce
sinker of choice. The line was attached directly to a barrel snap swivel and a hook, preferably one with a long shank on it, because those bullhead will just swallow anything that they get half a chance of getting, and half the time you're going to lose the hook. So you want to be able to get the swivel off of it. I mean, when we looked at snelled hooks and we're like, the bullhead will bite that and it'll get away. We don't want to use that. Never did we think, hey, use thicker line. You stick her leader line and get it. But so that went on. You would catch bullhead in our family maybe until they thought, oh, he's probably ready or she's probably ready. And at that point you might be 10, maybe 10 years old. And then they're like, okay, if you want to fish for carp, that's fine. We'll put a treble hook on your swivel. We make our own dough ball and we'll throw that out there. And then Grandpa would tell you, if you lose your rod today, don't cry to me. I'm telling you right now, keep your hand on your rod. Don't set it down. Don't pay attention to other stuff.
Ain't no sticking rod holders.
Yeah, no rod holders, no nothing. You set your rod right down on the rock, and then, obviously they feed differently. Half the time they take off and hook themselves and or take your rod or try to, and the other times, you wouldn't catch them. So then you get frustrated. It's like, well, I could catch bullhead all day, but I can't catch one carp a year, and so it was really cruel almost to do that. And
use a treble hook.
Now I wouldn't even think to do that. I would use a straight hook and some corn and just take it easy on myself. But I think what I meant is that I think it's kind of cruel to try to teach a kid to be patient.
No, I got you.
And the other people that I talk to are like, oh man, I used to catch bluegills and sunfish left and right, and the action was furious. And, I caught thousands of fish when I was a kid. And I'm like, I'd go like a year and I might catch like one carp on accident because it hooked itself, or two carp or something. And so, not that I'm saying that we've done everything wrong in Murillo family fishing, because the passion's there.
Right.
The commitment to respecting the fish and embracing the challenge was there.
Right.
It's just, I really think the only one who put a whole lot of effort into teaching us was Tone. And then
who is Tone?
Tone is my
for the
aunt.
podcast.
Tone is my aunt, and Tone has contributed to raising and teaching every child in the family younger than her. It's probably the most general and appreciative description of Tone I can give you.
Right.
But Gramps, he'd be like, here, fish right here, and he'd walk 100 yards down the bank. He was gone because he was trying to fish himself, and if you ran into trouble, you'd have to ask Tone to help you. So it was a little brutal, and now that I've experienced some pan fishing, I'm like, man, this would have been great.
Right.
So trying to incorporate some of that, and then after having experienced all the fun and the camaraderie that comes with this YouTube community, this last year, I can say truthfully, I fished for carp in April, and I have not tried to target them since. I've just been trying to target catfish and panfish. And
gotcha.
2 weeks ago, I bought a cast net. So even though I've got two bad shoulders, Trish showed me how to throw a cast net.
Trish is your sister.
Trish is my sister, and we had gone on some fishing.
So let me clarify. So you hear Mike talking about all these names. Remember, it's Murillo Family Fishing. So if he drops a name and he doesn't explain it, it's probably one of his family.
Yep.
So you got Trish,
thank you for stopping me.
Yeah,
because,
Trish,
like
your
said,
sister, and Tone is his aunt, and then John is dad, and Mexicat is cousin.
Yep.
And then your brother, you have your brother's name.
My brother's Dan.
Dan, that's right. Dan.
He'll go fishing with us every now and then.
And then Lauren is his oldest baby girl, and she loves to fish. And then your youngest just caught her first fish, right?
Yes, she was initiated yesterday. We had gone out a handful of times maybe that she was with us. And when she was younger, she was still in like an outdoor playpen kind of thing.
Right.
We caught fish left and right, and we showed her the fish, but she wasn't big enough to try to reel in a fish herself.
Right.
We had taken her a handful of times this
And
year.
so, and so in your part of Iowa, yeah. So she was just wasn't interested.
Yep, she was just playing around.
But so your part of Iowa, yesterday she really wanted to do it. I got you.
Yep.
Your part of Iowa, you don't have any blue cats, correct? Or the body of water you fish, you don't have any blue cats.
That's correct. I believe there are some blue cats that are being stocked in a few lakes.
Okay.
In southwestern Iowa, and I think that some have leaked into a reservoir that may be an hour or so southeast of me. But all of the places that I usually fish right around here, there are none. There are channel cats and there are flatheads.
Yeah, you do have flatheads. We've seen some of our other YouTube buddies catch some giant flatheads.
Yeah. I believe that I've felt the power, but I was bested.
Yeah.
I want to say maybe. Oh wow! Wait, no, I'm 44. I was going to say 15 years ago. I should say 25 years ago. Wow. I believe I felt the power of a flathead and maybe a couple times in the last couple years, but they could also be very large channel cat.
Yeah, because you don't have the channel cats, or you don't have the blue cats. Your channel cats get a little bigger than what we have down here. So I'll use that to segue into kind of my start. I grew up. I'm in South Carolina and around the Santee Cooper area. For those of you who don't know, and I fish two main bodies of water. We have Lake Moultrie, which is a part of the Santee Cooper Lakes, Lake Marion and Lake Moultrie. Lake Moultrie is pretty much a giant bowl, and there's one place where it gets about 56 feet. But most of the lake, the average of the lake is 10 to 15, maybe 20 foot deep. So if you've ever heard of Lake Moultrie, Santee Cooper, you know that if you get caught out on a storm on Lake Moultrie, it's deadly, literally deadly. So that's one of my spots, or one of my bodies of water. And then I also fish the Cooper River, which is a very, very small river that runs out of the river, or the lake, Lake Moultrie, and goes out into the Atlantic Ocean. So it's a tidal river. But we do have some big catfish, and Santee Cooper's kind of been known in the past to be a mecca of catfish, and that kind of changed. We didn't always have blue cats in South Carolina. I think it was 1974. We traded landlocked stripers. So when they built Santee Cooper, man-made lakes, they flooded the lakes, and so it was or they flooded the river, and so all those striper were landlocked, and they thought they would all die off. After they were finished, they wouldn't reproduce. Well, they did. They reproduced back then. So we had a natural reproduction of striper. So we traded striper for blue catfish, and I believe that was with Arkansas. And so we traded striped bass for, I think it was 186. Like, there's a specific number. It's like 186 blue cats. And they were stocked in Lake Moultrie, and they flourished. Like, I mean, other YouTubers have even been said on videos, like, you can walk on the water and step on catfish in Lake Moultrie. Well, that's not true, but, those 186 catfish have really flourished in that lake. And, in the early 90s, some, I call them poachers, but some longliners, some, Pay Lake fishermen came from Texas, and they kind of ravaged our lake. And they actually, fun fact, they had a new law that they put in place on the gap you could have in a hook. so that people would catch the smaller catfish, and the big catfish would get away. Well, the circle hook was developed because those guys from Texas wanted a big hook. So they developed a circle hook. So it's got the wide gap at the bottom, but where the tip to the shank meets is what qualified those small hooks. So they were getting past that rule. Well, anyway, of course, we developed rules in South Carolina, and Santee Cooper's starting to make a comeback. When I was growing up, I never knew all of that. My dad raised me fishing out of John boats, fishing out of small boats, shell cracker fishing. We would fish for shell cracker and brim. We call them copperhead brim. And then we would catfish every once in a while, but it was never like you see now. You never see trophy catfishing. We just went and we would suspend drift down the river. Sometimes we would anchor, and you'd hook one every once in a while. It was cool. In the summertime, we would do a trout line because you could do it back then, and we catch 20, 30 catfish, 40 maybe in a week on the trout line. We skin them up, clean them up, and put them in the freezer for later. And that was what we did. And then so, I was raised doing that. I started my adult life, and that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to shell cracker fish, and I just love it. And my wife, Anna, loves it. When we met, I showed her how to do it, and she's not looked back. She doesn't really care for catfishing too much. But so anyway, when I moved back down to Charleston, I had got a boat. A low bass boat, a little aluminum 17-foot boat. Kind of looks like a tracker bass boat, if you've ever seen one of those. And so my dad had given me some Shakespeare Contender combos from Walmart. And they sat in the garage in the corner and, got all dusty and everything. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna take those out. And I knew how to do a Carolina rig. That's all I knew how to do. And I tied clinch knots. That was it. Carolina rig with an egg sinker and a clinch knot. That's all I knew. And I got J hooks from Walmart. All my stuff came from Walmart. Even my bait. Don't judge me. But I couldn't even remember. It'd been so long catfishing that I couldn't even remember what kind of bait to use. So I got the Rusty's Red Shad. Rusty's Red Shad. Do you know what I'm talking about, Murillo?
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
You do?
Yep.
Well, I got the Rusty's Red Shad from Walmart, and I hooked it on there. And so I stopped off at a spot where I could do both. I could brim fish. There was some pylons, and I was just dropping our brim buster down to catch those big brim. And I threw out the rod. I didn't have a rod holder or nothing. I threw it out there. I turned around to tie off the anchor, and I heard a bang and a splash. And I turned around, and the rod was going across the river as fast as it could go. I was like, holy crap. So I pulled the anchor up. I put the brim buster away. I grabbed the other rod, and I started catfishing. And that's been the story ever since. I started chasing catfish right after that. And it was soon after that I saw that video, that Steve Douglas video. It was that Thanksgiving. So I thought that was pretty cool. And, that's when I started. I got the GoPro in December and started doing what we're doing. So I've just recently got back into shell cracker fishing. I kind of got away from it. I focused on catfish so long that I forgot how fun it is to catch bluegill. And or I've never actually caught a bluegill until we started YouTube. We call everything a brim unless it's a shell cracker. So that's something that I've had to get used to. But now I've learned about, using brim for bait and live bait and shad and herring and all that good stuff. And now chicken. Using chicken. And I've never caught a carp, but Mike Murillo did send me some carp stuff, and it will happen one day. But, the life of a YouTuber, people want to see those catfishing videos, so I find it hard not to go for catfish. But I'll get to it one. I promise. I promise.
Hey, I haven't fished for carp since April. I don't blame you. Around here, if you get a channel cat over 5 or 6 pounds, it's pretty exciting.
Mhm.
So and they're such good fighters. If you catch one over 10 pounds, I can say with honesty that the power of a 10-pound channel cat to me is equal to the power of a 20-pound carp. They may
Really?
not fight as long and they may not swim as fast or as far, but the power is there. So I have enjoyed the new challenges. I've enjoyed using and learning how to use bigger hooks, like you said, and bigger pieces of cut bait, and
Mhm.
now trying to obtain the bait. Trish, my sister, has turned into a fishing machine. Everything that all the information that she's gathered from all of the YouTubers
Mhm.
and everything that she learned while fishing with a guide, she is just trying to up the level of Murillo family fishing, and she's doing it. So I too have decided to embrace the challenges and the opportunities. I've even thrown lures the last couple weeks, hoping to catch some white bass or something that I can chop up and throw some big hunks out there for some catfish.
Mhm.
It's
So, like,
interesting to me what you said
mhm.
about how you were fishing for food and that you would harvest the fish and
Mhm.
fill the freezer. Our family, there were only certain people who wanted the fish, and never did it seem like we were offered to keep any or bring any home. But I also don't know that my mom really would have wanted to cook it.
Mhm.
I really can't say that I've ever seen her focus on a fish orientated dish
Hmm.
or just focus on that at itself. Now, my parents were divorced, so that's why I say my mom. And now, if grandpa wanted to catch fish, all of us got our night crawlers and we went out there and we tried to catch bullhead.
Mhm.
And if we
Mhm.
caught catfish, so be it.
Mhm.
He would keep them if they were big enough.
Right.
And he likes the taste of bullhead more than the taste of channel cat. And now it seems like the bullhead have been
Mm.
kind of the population isn't there like it used to be in the 80s and 90s. So now he's focused more on channel cat. He likes to fish with shrimp, which
Mhm.
works pretty good sometimes and not so good other times.
Mhm.
And of course, he doesn't eat as much catfish as he used to.
Mhm.
But yeah, I that's how I was raised. If someone I'd like to keep that fish. It's like, nope, my grandpa wants it. He can have it. Otherwise, it's going in the lake and you can catch your
Really?
own fish.
That's
And
so
people would get
interesting.
mad at me because I just say it exactly like that. And that's the way it is. And
Hmm.
I didn't realize, that I was such a big guy and that some people might, take that as a form of bullying or intimidation or whatever. I just stated it as a fact. But even even now, my dad's like, if you happen to get some fish, and if you can find it in your heart to save some for me, I would clean them. I will come get them and clean. And he's super nice about it. So I guess for a while maybe I wasn't nice about it, but
Now, see, that's the opposite. Like when my dad goes fishing with me, especially if I'm filming a video, which I rarely ever go fishing now without wanting to film a video. I have to beg him to put the fish back if it's over 15 pounds. There, I remember distinctly, when COVID hit, we got to fish a lot with each other because I was working from home, and at my job, I can, as long as I can answer emails when everybody's home, then I'm good. And with smartphones, that's really easy. But we were out in April or May of last year, and I still know it's April because I still had my little boat, and so we're sitting there fishing. I had just pulled in like a I was reeling in like a 2-pound little tiny blue catfish, one that would, for YouTube standards would be okay to eat. But then as I was reeling it in, his rod slammed down. The drag was going. He leaned forward on the whole boat's rocking. Both of us are, he's almost 300. I'm 300 plus. And so we're in that little 17-foot bass boat, and that thing's rocking back and forth. And he reels it in. It's like a 27-pound catfish. And what you didn't see on that video, it's called Catman Duo on YouTube. And it's, right when I was first starting. What you don't see on camera is like, Dad, you got to let him go. No, I need some nuggets. I need some fried nuggets. I'm keeping this fish. I said, come on, Dad. I said, I can't put the video out if you put that fish in there. The CPR guys will kill me, and I'll be raked over the coals. And then so the next clip, I turned the camera on. I was like, I convinced Dad to put it back, and he put it in the water and let it go. And I said, there he goes. And Dad goes, very alive. And now it's so hard, and he gets it now. I've been doing YouTube now for over almost 2 years, and he gets it. Going out there, and he actually, I'm not going to say that he adopted the CPR. And for those of you on the podcast who don't know what CPR is, that's catch, picture, and release. And it's kind of like policy, unwritten policy on YouTube channels. And some people just do it all together, especially at tournaments. Any fish over 20 pounds, I'd say, is kind of like 15, 20 pounds. You want to let loose because those fish have the genes, as they say, the genetics to reproduce trophy-sized catfish. And if you let those guys go and keep the smaller ones, then, you keep the gene pool alive for those big ones. Well, it's kind of that policy. And so he kind of gets that. And a lot of people say anyway that, the big fish don't taste good. Well, that's not true in our water system. Santee Cooper is very clean. And, you can eat 60, 80, 90 pounders, and that meat is just as white and pure as you ever seen. And so I don't subscribe to they're not good. I subscribe to it's better for the fishery. But I can't say what he does when he goes out. He definitely doesn't film videos, and if he's out on his boat, it's going to go in the cooler. And it's kind of hard for a guy that's I'm not, he's almost 70 years old, and he's gonna do what he's always done. And hopefully the younger generation, the guys that I was brought up that way, the guys and girls that kind of realize that we can make a difference and release those fish. But a lot of people come down to Santee Cooper and just ravage the lake. You go up there to one of them fish camps, and they have coolers full of them of all sizes, and it kind of makes you sad. But you do have to realize that that's been going on since the 60s. People coming down and just they take all they can get. And you just got to believe in the power of reproduction, I guess.
Yep. I think the more that we talk about topics and all of the topics of fishing, hot topics of fishing, everything that's discussion worthy or debatable, we're going to run into what you just said. Doing what you've always done, whether that be tactics or whether it be fishing that same spot or just I think we're gonna sit back and we're gonna say that quite a bit, whether it be you saying it or me saying it.
Yeah, and that's kind of a good segue. We talked about how we kind of grew up and why we do what we do. So what we're going to talk about on the show, we definitely, for those of you watching live, the membership, and definitely those of you who are listening on the podcast, write us. Let us know what you want to hear. But some topics that you'll definitely hear is CPR, You know, we might even have some guests come in. People talking about catfish management or fish management. We're not just going to talk about catfish on this show. Let me make that clear. This is a fishing podcast, and Mike is kind of like a carp guru, even though he hasn't fished for him in a while. And I'm more of a panfish and catfish guru. So not more panfish than catfish, but that's kind of like what we know, and so we'll refer to that often. But I'm down to talk about every kind of fish, whether it's gar or sharks or trigger fish or halibut, whatever. We're gonna try to talk about it, and then we'll definitely talk about gear, and those will probably be some of the most in-depth shows that we'll have, because I know I like gear, but I know one person that likes it more than me, and his name's Michael Murillo.
I got problems, y'all. I got addiction issues, and it hasn't slowed down at all.
Mike's got so much fishing gear that he sends it to me sometimes and goes, "Hey, I just found this. Can you use it?"
Yeah. Did you get that last box yet?
Not yet.
I think they said tomorrow.
Okay.
The holiday cost us a day.
Yeah. Darn holiday, man.
Yeah. I'm excited.
So we'll talk about rods and reels and line. Talk about terminal tackle. We'll talk about baits. Baits are going to be another topic. Things that fisher people talk about. But we can also talk about bodies of water we'd like to visit or that we have visited. We'll talk about conferences like the Catfish Conference. And actually, Michael and I have never met face-to-face, oddly enough.
This doesn't count?
No, this doesn't count as face-to-face. I've never shaken Mike's hand. How about that?
Okay.
But we're going to meet for the first time in November. So, that's going to be awesome. And maybe, Mike, if you want, we can do a podcast from the Catfish Conference.
Yeah. I think
we should. Cool. On the same screen in one square or rectangle.
Oh, I moved the wrong way.
Reunited and it feels. Let me stop. So I like to sing too.
I can't sing as well as you. I know a lot of the lyrics, but my brother, every time I even act like I'm singing, my brother Dan's like, "Don't do that."
But you can hold up the lyrics cards for me, and I can sing.
Yeah.
But that's also another thing,
on their phone now.
Yeah. Yeah, technology, and I'm talking about paper.
Yeah.
Come on, Kevin. But yeah, that's another thing. I'm into YouTube, and Mike. Mike's not as into it making the content, but he's probably going to start getting into it. So let's talk about gear. If you want to start filming your stuff, I actually got a new camera coming in, and so I have a UPS notification, and I missed the delivery today. But Mike, you didn't make me sign for that thing, did you?
No.
So that was my camera that I missed today. So I must be getting that and your package tomorrow.
Hopefully.
But yeah, Mike and I will be at both Catfish conferences. Both. So I'll go ahead and tell you, if you want to meet both of us, we'll be in CatCon Kansas City, Missouri on November 19th and 20th. And we'll both be in Louisville, Kentucky on February 26th and 7th, I think is the date. But if not, you can check out catfishconference.com. And we'll both be there. Mike is going to be running the swap shop type deal that we have. What did we end up calling that?
Steve changed the name there, and I wrote it down, but I don't have that notepad by me.
Yeah, I've got it somewhere on my phone, but it's a cool idea. And you can bring like old gear in and kind of sell it, kind of like the fisherman's swap shop.
Swap shop. There you go.
Swap shop. So you can bring I think it said up to 5 items. You pay $5 and you can bring them into that swap shop and sell them or trade them or whatever you want to do. And Mike's going to be there.
This is all any gear addict like me needs. You put me right where I want to be.
That's right. And I knew who the man for the job was. I
That's
said,
why I said I won't fly. I need to drive my truck for extra cargo space.
Yeah, we'll definitely be flying to Kansas City, but we'll probably drive to Kentucky. It's a little closer to us. It's only 10 hours instead of 13.
It's 9 for me.
Yeah. So yeah, that's another thing we'll talk about. We'll talk about bank fishing because that's what Mike does primarily, and we'll talk about boat fishing because that's what I do primarily, and the differences between the two, and how you can improve your boat fishing and your bank fishing. Um, so the swap shop will be in Louisville and Kansas City, which is why Mike will be at both of them. So it's a new thing. Eventually, there's going to be a catfish conference in Texas, and there's going to be one on the East Coast somewhere. I'm trying to convince Mr. Douglas that CatCon at the beach sounds very inviting. Doesn't it? Doesn't that just sound good?
Well, you were organized. It wasn't necessarily a sales pitch as much as it was statements of fact.
Yeah.
You showed him the location.
Mm-hmm.
You showed him how it would be a family environment, a family location where husbands, wives, and children could all enjoy their time.
Mm-hmm.
Now, how far away is it from you? From your
30
house?
minutes.
That's not your fault.
It's not.
That is just a
No.
wonderful coincidence.
So I proposed to the CatCon overlords, I guess, Herve and Steve, that we have CatCon in Charleston, South Carolina, at the North Charleston Convention Center because there's the beach, which is 15 minutes from the convention center, and then there's Santee Cooper, which is 30 minutes the other direction. And I mean, how many more? Honestly, how many more? And I know this is going to sound one-sided, but it's a statement of fact. I know there are women that love fishing, but there are tons more men, right? How many more men would you get to come to the catfish conference if their wives and children could go to the beach and hang out all day? I mean, is that not a mic drop statement right there?
It is a bucket list fishing destination. People, my dad has been saying that to me for 20 years. He's like, we ought to fish Santee. And I'm like, I don't even know if you're pronouncing that right, Dad. And I don't know where it's at, but all I know is I'm not going that far. But if you have more things in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, we have outlet malls. You get to see historic Charleston, downtown Charleston. There's the beach. There's several beaches. There's at least 3 or 4 you can go to. You got Santee Cooper, tons of shopping. You know, the friendliest people around. I mean, I'm just gonna say everybody that comes here is like, you know, everybody's so nice. And I'm like, well, they don't mean it, but that's just how we do. It's called Southern hospitality. They're not actually asking you how you are. It's just how we greet each other. Hey, how y'all? No, we're good. And then move on. But yeah, I mean, CatCon at the beach, it's got a ring to it. It just does. It's got a ring to it. And I forgot to mention that you could go saltwater fishing too. There's guides out here, and you can go catch you a shark or a mahi or tuna or a blue marlin. Well, maybe not blue marlin. You have to go a little farther out, but you know, there's tons of stuff to do here. So anyway, I digress. I'm trying to convince myself who's already convinced. But yeah, so then there's
It makes perfect sense to me.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for that. You're hired as co-host. But yeah, you know, and then there's supposed to be a floating a floating catfish conference, so it'll change cities every year.
So
that's
Kansas City should be a consistent
it
location.
should be. It should be a consistent location. You'll always have Kentucky. And then there's supposed to be a Texas one, which I know a lot of people are excited about. Because that's as far, he said that's as far west as they'll probably go.
I personally have no interest in the state of Texas. No offense.
Hey, you might offend some of our listeners, man. I mean, come on. I love Texas.
Yeah. Been there a few times. It's
I've
really
been there.
hot for me.
It is really hot, and
Look.
I've been there, but maybe they'll choose something closer to the Gulf.
It was 85 degrees, and some people were wearing coats. I'm wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and they're like, "Aren't you going to get cold?" I'm like, no. It's just a different temperature for me down there. For sure.
But yeah, so we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We'll talk about YouTube and then we'll just have some fun sometimes. Sometimes we'll just kind of relax and lay back. So yeah. Mike, what else do you envision that we'll talk about that I haven't mentioned already?
Well, I put it all down on a spreadsheet, and of course I didn't pull the spreadsheet up because I had to give Kevin the big technology scare right before we went live here, and we'll just talk about it quickly. There was 9 minutes to showtime, and the old laptop here decided that the speakers weren't going to work and the microphone wasn't going to be read by the browser, so I had to restart everything. And
he didn't meant to say "ol" like OL apostrophe. He meant OLD. Old.
OLD. OLD. I found Fiber One bars in the laptop bag that Best Buy 2010 today.
So we're taking donations for Michael Murillo, a new laptop.
But apparently, I might need to invest in some slightly newer technology. Kevin was giving me some advice. He's like, "Come on, dude, what's going on? You weren't even responding my text, man." I was like, "I was trying to restart the thing. It didn't even want to start." He's like, "It's showtime, man, in like 2 minutes." I was like, "I know." Then I reminded him that he picked me as a co-host.
Yeah, I did.
He very nicely reminded me that he mentioned it to 3 people, and I was the only one who responded. So now I'm used to that. And quite frankly,
listen, man, the horsemen, they didn't want to come in. You were the only one that came in, and I know we're joking, but I'm really happy that you decided to do this with me. I think it's going to be awesome. But so we do not. One of our members, Mike's Fishing Home, just donated $2 to the channel, and he said, "New laptop fun."
Thank you.
So we'll get that. We'll put that in the bank, and we'll get one about 2027. But no, Mike, we appreciate that, and I appreciate the comedy that goes along with it.
I was trying to understand. I always say that nothing's coincidence. And the week before,
I agree.
You asked me about this, about this adventure. I started listening to a podcast, and I listened to all 15 episodes of it. And I'll be honest, I had asked Kevin in the past why people called something a podcast, or what this was, or what other ones are out there. My sister's always like, "Oh, you need to watch this listen to this podcast." And I've always said that I'm the worst listener that I know. And I'm not even kidding. I mean, it's hilarious that I say that so much. And I've even tried to become a better listener, and I'm telling you, honestly, it's really hard. But I made myself listen to these other podcasts, and then Kevin's like, "I'm thinking about doing this." And I thought about it. not just because I am part of the creative team of many YouTube channels, I will say,
Mhm.
but not that. Just I get these ideas, and I feel like I can't do this stuff, but I have friends who are really talented, and maybe they can do this stuff.
Mhm.
So they benefit maybe just from me just sitting around thinking about what I can't do or what I think
Mhm.
might be interesting or fun. Well, this was not my idea. And yet I'm just like, "Wait a minute." I was like, this could be really fun." And Kevin's like, "Yeah, man, you know some stuff and we can talk." And then I'm like, that's
Well, I mean,
awesome.
you
I'm
know
gonna
some
get to
stuff,
talk to you
and
for an hour a
you know some
week.
stuff, and you just like to talk a lot. So
Yeah, and it's not a lot of listening, but this is also an opportunity for me to try to listen better to what you're saying,
mm,
and also continue to learn, because the YouTube
good
catfishing,
point.
I should say fishing community, it has brought a lot of information to me and given me that opportunity to learn, the opportunity to try to be a better listener, but also the opportunity to try to contribute positively in a few different ways. So it's just been so awesome, and I think if this could contribute and provide any extra benefit, value, whatever you want to say, to the Boom Squad, then that's that's what I'm called to do.
And
So
you
I
brought
think,
up a great point, and I do want to make this clear to everybody listening, and of course everybody watching live on YouTube is we don't know everything. Pretty much, I mean, I'm going to speak for myself. I don't know a third of everything. And I make that clear on my channel, like my YouTube channel. Every once in a while, I'll remind people that, hey, look, I just started targeting catfish a year and a half ago, so I'm learning, and you're along with the on the journey with me. And so Mike's shaking his head for those of you who are listening. So he's agreeing with me that we're learning as we go, and we're just sharing our thoughts. And so that's a lot of what we'll be doing on this podcast. We'll get a reel, and Mike's really good at gear, and when he gets a reel or a rod, he'll break it down into its components and really research it and really overthink it to most people's standards. But then he'll provide that quality insight to all of you. So that's something to look forward to if you're thinking about whether or not you want to come over and subscribe on YouTube. If you're listening to this podcast, you can subscribe to the podcast too. Um, if you want to come over to YouTube, this is members only content. You can come join the Boom Squad. And just for those of you listening, the Boom Squad, when we get super chats in YouTube, I kind of started saying boom, kind of like, what's that guy, that chef's name, Caesar? Uh, no, it was shoot, I can't remember. It starts with the E. But anyway, when he put an ingredient in, he go boom.
Emerald,
Emerald, yes.
Emerald, yeah.
Emerald. And so whenever we got when we got super chats, which is when people donate money to the channel, I would say boom, and it just kind of caught on. And so I was like, I need to name my membership the Boom Squad. So
Brilliant.
I say all that to say, obviously both Mike and I love to talk, so we're definitely gonna have to set some time limits here. But if you're listening on the podcast, there's also other quality content on my channel and Mike's channel. Come on over and check us out on YouTube. And if you want to see what you're hearing, then you have to join the Boom Squad. And our lowest membership, I think, is $4.99. But you'll be helping the podcast now, and you'll be helping the channel to do things like get better equipment and for the videos, to make production videos and things like that. We also do a lot of live stream tournaments on our channel. And actually, on September 12th, this is something that nobody else knows, not even Mike. But September 12th, we have a fish off for our Iron Cat Ladies tournament. So that's next Sunday. We were going to do September 11th, but then we realized that, September 11th is probably not a good day for a lot of people. Probably going to be a lot of memorials, especially since it's the 20-year anniversary. So we decided to go on the 12th, and it's going to be 5 or 4 p.m. to 9 p.m., and the two biggest fish win. So that's what we're going to do, and we'll have an Iron Cat Ladies Champion, and so that should be exciting. So lots of reasons to come over to the YouTube channel. If you're listening on the podcast, I'm learning how the podcast work depending on what provider you're listening on. You can subscribe to the podcast, and there's even a way for you to donate on the podcast if you feel led to do that. Mike, I also need to bring up the fact that this is a faith-based channel, and so that may drive off some people. But at the end of every podcast, you'll hear me pray out, and I always want to thank God for blessing the channel and the podcast and blessing us. And I don't ever claim anything for myself. I do give credit to my friends and family for supporting me and helping me along the way. But I believe wholeheartedly that those people were sent to me by God. So I always like to give praises to him. And also, if you have any prayer requests or you're in need of someone to talk to, just send me an email and we'll get right on that. So that's all I got to end the first episode. Mike, I think it's gone pretty well. What do you think?
I'm still trying to determine whether I even know 1/3. That's
I said we don't even know one. I don't even know 1/3.
Yeah, you just spoke for yourself, and I'm just like I'm thinking I might be like a 10th, but I'll work on it.
I don't know fractions. You're the math guy. So
yeah, numbers are hard.
But this has been the first episode of the Real Deal Podcast. REEL, get it? Play on words, fishing podcast. Bueller.
Yeah.
Bueller, anybody?
I've been laughing about that all day. Was it you or I that thought of that? I can't even remember.
We were testing back names, and I think it's kind of like, I think you came up with the final the Real Deal name, and it's just perfect. It's perfect.
Before that, I thought of the Fishing Chronicles, but then I'm like, I use that word and I don't even know what all it means. I don't know definition A and B.
What would be?
So
what would we be chronologic? Anyway, I
was trying to sound smart, but I'm telling you, I only know 1/10 of what I think I know. So
I'm showing my intelligence now. The subscribers are falling off now. The ones that listen to me and press the button are now saying, "Never mind."
Well, you will get humor also.
Yeah, that's right. You will. We don't take anything too seriously, and we will cut a joke here every once in a while. But anyway, like I said, this has been the Real Deal Podcast, and what we'll do every time we end is I will say a prayer, and if Mike ever feels led to say a prayer, maybe he'll even do one. But for now, I'll lead us off, and we'll do that now. Heavenly Father, we just thank you for a successful podcast. Lord, we ask that you bless the podcast, that people would get one or two things from it, Lord, education or entertainment, or both, if you so will. Lord, we just thank you for what you've done already. We look forward to the blessings that you will provide for us. We give you all thanks for this podcast and the YouTube channel and the people here. Thank you for the Boom Squad and everybody listening on the podcast. And Lord, will continue to lift you up, because without you, none of this would be possible. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
All right, Mike. Thanks a lot, man. I'm looking forward to episode 2. We'll try to keep it consistent, everybody. On Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. is when we film, and when we record for the Boom Squad. But if we go on a different night, we'll definitely advertise it for those people. If you're listening on the podcast, just make sure you subscribe so you'll know when a new episode drops every time. All right, everybody. Till next time, happy fishing.